Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend on you. No matter the weather, emergency, or time of day, you're the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're here for you with professional-grade industrial supplies. Count on real-time product availability and fast delivery. Call, clickgrainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
The views, opinions, or advice offered by this show's host do not necessarily reflect those of News Talk 780 KOH or its parent company, Cumulus Media. This is Bosma On Business with award-winning entrepreneur Mike Bosma, sponsored by Keystone CPAs. We're getting Northern Nevada back to business.
Good morning, business owners. It's Mike Bosma, your business savvy CPA, coming to you from the KOH studio. Hey, you Garden Show listeners, you want to hang tight? Hang on. Today's installment of Bosma On Business, we're going to talk to you about maybe scaring some of those creatures out of the garden. As each and every Saturday, we give you a little bit of 60 minutes of action-packed business adventure. Today, no different. Now, I've got a friend of mine that has an interesting product that he sells, and that is just really designed so that the animals can't see you. On the phone, Mike Slinkard from Human Energy Concealment, or HEX. Mike, welcome to Bosma On Business.
Hey, Mike, how are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. So, Mike, we get started by just saying tell us a little bit about your business. If I ran into you, you're a business owner? Tell me, give me the elevator pitch. What do you do?
Okay. Well, we're actually a fairly interesting business for a lot of people. So I have a passion in the hunting world. I've been an archery hunter my whole life and had, in former career past, had archery companies and businesses and things like that. But also a bit of a science geek. So back in, probably 2007, 2008, kind of got down this rabbit hole of how animals perceive electrical fields. So we realized that animals are able to navigate using the Earth's electromagnetic field. That's actually an extreme low-frequency electromagnetic field that, guess what? So all living beings also emit that through heart rate and basic bodily function. So way back, like I said, in about 2008, 2009, we started to put those dots, kind of connecting those two dots to actually come to the realization that most animals actually are able to pick up the electrical field that is emitted by other living beings. So birds see it visually. It's very well proven. We know there's a lot of research around sharks and rays and animals like that as far as picking up electrical fields. But, what we now know is that pretty much every animal has the ability to sense those electrical fields. And it's one of the ways that they tell living beings, and especially movement, from inanimate ones. So in a nutshell, that's what we do. We developed a fabric that actually blocks that. So our clothing is got a conductive carbon grid woven in. It's specifically designed to block what's coming off of our body, very much like the microwave oven works.
Mm-hmm.
It actually blocks that field and takes it to ground. So pretty proven electronics. But so we actually launched the company back in 2010 and been doing well ever since.
So how did you come up with the technology and how did you prove it?
Well, the technology basically was just connecting those two dots. Like I said, the Earth's electromagnetic field is in that extreme low-frequency electromagnetic field range. And when we've started realizing what is emitted by all living beings, it's also very, very similar. So, as a matter of fact, there's only a few degrees difference between the two. So, it kind of a common sense kind of thing. If they can use something for, navigation, why couldn't they use it for other things? Mm-hmm. So, that was the basis of the whole, idea back then. And so, blocking the field is pretty easy. I mean, it's basically a Faraday cage. Where actually that field's leaving your body. It's that grid is size and shape to capture that particular wavelength of energy, and then it just goes to ground. So very proven electronics. So that part was actually the easiest part, was figuring out how to block it, and it was why that was the most important. Once we were able to block that, we started seeing major results ourselves. We actually commissioned a guy here in Oregon to go out and do a full scientific study, which is on our website. And, we filed for patents and got 5 issued U.S. patents. We have an assortment of international patents now as well. So, in a quick nutshell, that's kind of how we did it.
So, and then of course, I remember years ago, Mike, I was on a board of directors for the scientific arm of the University of Nevada, and helped to kind of commercialize and monetize all this great inventions. And you can have the coolest inventions, but it's a whole other business getting the word out and actually have people adopt what you're selling. So how did you go through that process to raise awareness that this could be a thing, and then convince people they need to buy it?
Well, actually, that's probably the hardest part of our business. As you might imagine, back in 2010, when we launched this thing, it was pretty out there, as far as what most hunters, particularly because we launched it in the hunting market originally, most hunters weren't even aware that, animals are able to do this, and even though, it's been said for years and years, animals have a sixth sense, and, they, like, for instance, a whitetail hunter, if you're sitting in a tree stand and the deer walks by and looks in your tree consistently, and don't look in any other tree, just looks in the one you're sitting in, and you've got all the conditions right, you're sitting still, you're fully camoed, you've got your outline blocked and all that kind of thing. And so really every hunter had seen it, but a lot of people weren't really understanding what was actually going on. And so, originally, we were the crazy tin hat guys for a long time. But the thing is how we kind of overcame that was, number one, when we introduced our first system, it was a very basic, lightweight system that was good for, you could use it in any hunting situation. And most people are wearing it under their other hunting clothing. And so we felt like it was important to have something that was not going to be, not have a downside to it. So we came up with this very lightweight system so it wouldn't overheat you or anything like that, but it would house the technology. And, we priced it very aggressively to begin with. Plan on making a lot of money to begin with. It was more about getting the product out there and getting people, giving us feedback. Mm-hmm. And the feedback was very positive, and it still continues to be extremely positive to those people that actually use it. We still have a lot of skeptics that haven't used it, but not very many that have. So, we did that. Originally, we actually launched through traditional, brick and mortar dealers. My former company, we actually worked with, in the archery industry, we actually worked with dealers, and we launched it that way. But one of the things we found quite quickly was that our dealers really weren't, they weren't well versed in how to tell people how the technology worked, and they came up with all kinds of things in blocking your aura and all kinds of hocus pocus stuff. So anyway, about 3 or 4 years in, we decided to back up, take this thing completely consumer direct, so we could have control over our messaging, and it's been a great thing for us. We sell direct to consumer online, and we also have our own Amazon and Walmart stores. So the only place to get Hex is actually through us. And that way, when people get it, number one, they get everything they need, because it's important to have what we call a full system, which is a shirt, a pant, and a head cover. It's important to have that, and also for people to understand what they're going to see and what they won't see. So that's kind of how we did that. It was more of a necessity really than anything else to getting people to understand it and buy it. And, after, we launched this thing in 2010, so in the last 14 years, we've actually garnered a very large contingency of people who have used it, that have seen the difference. Like I said, our skeptics are only those that haven't used it. So it makes us feel good. We do about 30 consumer shows a year as well. So we're face-to-face with our customers, all across the country, and that's important to get feedback and that too. So
on the phone, Mike Slinkard from Hex, Human Energy Concealment company, and I think it's fascinating, right? The haters, everybody's got an opinion, whether it's informed or not, remains to be seen. But everybody's got an opinion, and I remember Mike, years ago, for those benefit of our listeners, think about Star Trek. I remember watching Star Trek as a kid, and I remember looking over at my brother. I don't know, I was probably 6, and that means he was 5, and Captain Kirk, he calls, hits his communicator. It says, "Beam me up, Scotty," right? And Scotty, aye, Captain, right? So prepare to transport. That's the best Irish accent I could swing on a Saturday morning. But And I said, you know how that's fake? How you know that's fake? He goes, how? He goes, because there's no wires. There have to be wires if you're going to talk to this ship. It doesn't work, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, now I think about it, 40, 50 years later, I'm like, what an idiot, right? Because it's just the perspective I had, right? It's a little flawed.
Well, yeah, and that's a great analogy, because how many things on Star Trek are actually things that we use,
right.
Every day, a cell phone and, all this stuff. And, and it's just, technology is one of those things that, as it proceeds and you get, more understanding on how things work, you actually start to dig back, in our case, and dig back and look at, okay, how are animals actually using this as well? And, once you use HEX and actually see the difference, it's pretty undeniable. I mean, it's hard to argue with it. I was probably the biggest skeptic while we were testing this that you could possibly imagine. But, when the same thing keeps hitting you in the face over and over and over, for instance, we do a lot of wild turkey hunting, and a lot of people realize that wild turkeys are very attuned to movement. Well, what we found out is when you block the electrical field from that movement, a bird will pretty much ignore you.
Oh, really?
Because that's their main defense. Now, just to kind of prove this even more, last year we were turkey hunting, and my buddy and I both were putting on bright orange vests, hunting with archery equipment, and having birds at sub 10 yards looking right straight at you. Number one, most turkey hunters would say that would be impossible just because of the color. But not only that, but being able to draw our bows and move around, and they pretty much ignore you. So, in the realm of birds, the HEX discovery has just changed the whole game. Right. It's completely changed what we know birds are actually using from their defense. They see movement, but what they really see is the electrical field off of living movement that they care about.
Right. Otherwise, you could just be a tree. Like, you're good, right? But it's like...
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I mean, for years, people have been hunting on windy days and wondered how come they move at all. Everything in the whole environment's moving, but they move at all, and that turkey picks them out in a heartbeat. Right. It's because they're the one that has the electrical field. So,
okay, no,
once you understand it, it really makes a lot of sense, and it'll hit you right in the face once you use it.
Yeah, well, and I'll tell you, when you're trying to work through retailers, God bless them, we love them, right? Because hey, people are they're shopping, they're in Shields, they're in Cabela's, but the difficulty is, and I remember years ago, Mike, I had a buddy. He was starting a shoe store, and I did his business plan for him, and I was like, I did all the cash flow analysis. Like, in order to start the shoe store, you need like $500,000, for inventory and the build out and to get it cash flow positive. He goes, well, I don't have that. I'm like, oh, that's a problem. So we kind of sharpened the pencil. And I called his dealer that he wanted to, his genre was wide feet. So I called up the dealer. I said, well, where do you store your shoes? Well, in the warehouse. I'm like, okay, well, rather than storing in the warehouse, why don't you just let us store them for you? And then we'll pay you as soon as we sell them. And then if you need them, come get them. We're good. But, the key is we need to make sure we have it. And they actually signed off on that. So, right? And so it's took like $300,000 of upfront cash flow away, because that's where you look at how much it costs to have that inventory. Well, a lot of retailers, for an unproven product, they're like, I don't know if I want to buy a lot of it, but we'll let you put it on our floor, and that means you're incurring the carrying cost for that inventory. On the phone, Mike Slinkard from Human Energy Concealment Company. When we come back, we're talking about how to build a loyal base direct to consumer. You heard it here and only here. It's Bosma On Business, News Talk 780 KOH.
The Rolling Stone Music Now podcast gets inside the biggest stories with Rolling Stone senior writer Brian Hyatt.
Now here is my conversation with Jacob Knoll. Your story is an amazing one, and obviously you lost your dad when you were only 1 year old.
It was definitely a screwy way to grow up. I think that a lot of people never heard of who I am, and then they see me joining this band, and they must think this kid must have just been handed everything, or nepotism kid. It's a gift that I have an opportunity to sing in such a big band like my father and my uncle's band, Sublime.
Rolling Stone Music Now, wherever you listen.
Welcome back to Bosma On Business. Your host, Mike Bosma, on the phone. Mike Slinkard, President, CEO, Chief Cook, and Bottle Washer for Human Energy Concealment Company, or HEX. Mike, when we talk about growing direct-to-consumer, maybe some of the hardest fought behavior on the planet. In fact, it's funny. I ordered some shirts on, and I should never do this. My wife tells me, like, when I tell her I ordered something, she says, well, where'd you order it from? And if the answer is Facebook, she knows I got scammed again. So a lot of scams out there, a lot of promises, all the rest of it. So, there's a lot of chatter, let's put it that way. So, you're direct consumer, but now you do shows, so you're in front of people. I know you have your own podcast, so you have your own following. How do you get in front of people? What does it cost to make that first sale, and how do you monetize that?
Well, so there's several different ways. For about the past 11 years, we've actually had our own television show that airs on the Pursuit channel, which is one of basically the outdoor hunting type channels. And it's available, of course, on satellite, online, and in a lot of cable areas as well. It's a national network across the country. And so we produce a show called Hunting with Hacks, and it's actually gets very good ratings, even though we have a very large sales portion to it, because we show just the interaction, just the close-up interaction of hunters with hacks, and then we kind of tell how what the advantages are and show that. So that's been kind of our basic one for a long time, but we've now we've crossed into that social media realm too. And honestly, a lot of that was finding the right marketing people to work with on that actually understand the hunting market and understand what we're doing. And we finally found one that's working very well for us. So you mentioned Facebook, and we do a lot of ads on Facebook, and we get a lot of comments back. Oh, it's a scam. It's this, that, and the other thing. But the cool thing is we also get probably an equal number or maybe more people that get on there and say, yeah, I use Hex. I see this every day, every time I use it. And that. So, I mean, it's actually the customer comments that come back on that actually kind of validate us as we go along. And we've kind of got that formula down now where, we're probably doing, 40% of our sales now off of, directly off social media. Right. So where, we were doing about 90% off the TV show, 5 years ago. So, but it's definitely a challenge doing the direct consumer, and it's expensive. I always say, we've basically turned down all the big box retailers because of margin, and that's exactly the truth. I mean, the big boxes are going to want 60% margin, and we made the decision that we would rather take that, and rather than raising the price of our product across the board to make it work for everybody, we just use that, and use it in our marketing expense instead. And so far it's working well, and we're growing. We're growing well every year. So, but it's definitely a challenge. There's no doubt.
Well, and that's where, for the benefit of our listeners, Mike Slinkard, Human Energy Concealment Company, they, when you're in direct to consumer, the holy grail is repeat customers. So, and that's where, sometimes some less than scrupulous people would actually, invent subpar product. Like in yours, Mike. I know this isn't the case, because that's the problem. Somebody has a system; they have their system. They don't need multiple systems. But yeah, it's so funny because you're like, well, no, that's going to wear out. That's going to short circuit in the season. You got to buy a new one next year, so you have repeat customers. So, and that, if you can pull that one off, I will tell you, man, it is. From a multiple perspective, when you sell your business, you don't have to go out and market. Those orders are going to come in every year. But those are hard. We call it the holy grail of direct to consumer, being able to have repeating revenue, pillow money, that I don't have to fight for every day. So, now how did you decide? Now you said you found a marketing company. How do you decide how much to spend, and how do you split it between the platforms? Because that's usually some magic there.
Well, and it is, and we actually have a tool called Northbeam that we use, which actually is a program that tracks your sales and where they come from. So, so we have a pretty good way of tracking, particularly the stuff that's coming from online sources, whether it's the social media ads or we do Google ads and all that kind of thing. But if it comes from electronic sources, it's pretty trackable now. And, for our multiple, we require, during most times, we require a 5X ROI on that. Mm-hmm. And so all of our marketing guys also have this tool, and, their orders are to throttle the spend up and down to try to stay at that 5X. Now, during times like Black Friday and some of the, the bigger Christmas season when we really are, we're really rocking and rolling, I do let them go all the way down to 4. If we get below 4, we will pare back spend pretty quick.
Okay.
Because that's where it takes for us to be profitable. But we shoot for that 5X for most of the time, and it turns out pretty good. It allows them the flexibility to be able to throttle that spend up and down to maximize our return.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, that's the science of direct-to-consumer. So if you figure out your formula, basically it should be as simple as the more money that you pour into marketing, the more margin you have. And then you can just decide how big you want to be based on how much you can afford to grow, because it's also a bit of a sticky wicket, right, Mike? I mean, you know, where's your product manufactured and what's the lead time to get it so that you have it to sell?
Yeah, see, that's another issue in the clothing industry, and it's unfortunate, but you know, all of the clothing industry right now is overseas. As a matter of fact, our fabric is very, very technical. There's only 2 plants right now that we know of that can actually make our fabric. One's in Taiwan and one's in China. And believe me, I wish they were in the U.S. But, you know, our lead times are, you know, in excess of 6 months. So, you know, when we order something, which we have to pay 50% up front, you know, it's 6 months usually before we actually see it and are able to sell it. So, you know, forecasting and all of that becomes, you know, pretty important. So you don't get stuck with too much or too little. You know, that's all. It's even worse when you have too little.
Right.
But, you know, you have to try to formulate all that in so so you can hit the growth that you want, and at the same time, you know, keep the lights on. So, but yeah, that's another big challenge for us, and one that, you know, luckily we've been doing this long enough now. We've got a pretty good handle on it.
No, I got you. Because that's, you know, again, direct-to-consumer with your product manufactured offshore, you know, you're really, you know, reading the tarot cards, right? Divining the tea leaves. So you're like, okay, how much are we going to sell? And if you don't do the algebra correctly, or maybe it's calculus, you're either long or you're short. And then you've tied up a bunch of money in inventory that isn't moving. And usually the hunting season, it's a defined duration. So it's like, it's not gonna, you know, the lights aren't going to come on for a while if you miss the season.
Yeah, we're definitely seasonal, you know, and we're lucky because we actually have a spring season as well as a fall season, because we do a lot of turkey hunting and things like that. But, you know, it really is. It's a kind of a challenge to make sure that you get all that going. But the other part of that, and the part of bringing back repeat customers, is you know, having something new too. So we're always trying to refine and come up with a new product that has the technology, and you know, that's a whole nother investment unto itself when you start those.
Yeah,
so, but it's critical to have that repeat customer, because, like I said, X doesn't necessarily wear out, you know, and very, very quickly at all. So, you know, having something that's a little more convenient, a little nicer wear, stuff like that is important too.
No, and that's where, for the benefit of our listeners, when you're in the research and development phase, when we come back, we're going to talk about the pitfalls of R&D as well as the upside. You heard it here and only here. It's Bosma on Business, Newstalk 780 KOH. Welcome back to Bosma on Business. Your host, Mike Bosma. You know, at the bottom of the hour, we always give a little bit of tax tidbit, and probably the best advice I can give you is extend. The 3 top things this tax season: extend your tax returns. Let me tell you why. So right now there is a bill in Congress, and if you're a business owner, chances are, if this bill is passed, that it will benefit you. So right now we are limited into how much depreciation we can claim through bonus depreciation. If you ever own a real estate, you're really going to feel that, because other business owners with active income can take the 179 expense election, but you know, which we haven't talked about for 5-6 years, but now that's back because of this limitation on bonus depreciation. Well, that bill in the Senate is about retroactively reinstating that. What Mike Slinkard from Human Energy Concealment Company, who's on the phone, is saying about research and development right now. If you have those types of expenses, so let's just say you have $100,000 of R&D expenses, you're basically going to get a $6,000 tax credit for that. I won't bore you with the math, but you get a $6,000 tax credit. Yay. But you can't deduct the $100,000. Before, Code Section 174, you'd always be able to deduct those costs, but now you can't. So you have to amortize them over 5 years. Crazy time, right? So you're like, well, hold on. right? I'm actually paying tax on my research and experimentation costs. Yes, you are. So it's definitely dampened people's enthusiasm to take the credit. It's kind of terrible policy, but in this proposed legislation, it is there to be reinstated retroactive to the beginning of 2023. If you have kids, and the commissioner of the Internal Revenue Service said, hey, if you qualify for these additional kid credits, if Congress ever gets their act together, we'll send you a check. But that's not true if you're a business owner. So if you're a business owner, pay what you need to pay, but then extend, because last thing you want to do is have to file an amended return to get these benefits, because it takes right now about 6 months to get a refund, even if you file an original return. The other thing that you want to do, and super important, this one's for free, this Saturday morning, is even if you want to file on time, at 4:15, you still want to extend your tax return, and this is why. Because, let's say you're jonesing, you're going to get a big refund back. I need my money. Fine, get your money. But extend it anyway, because that way, if they change the law before 10/15 or October 15th of this year, then you can file a superseded return. Well, that goes in automatically, and then you'll get that extra money back and you'll deposit it in your bank account. Otherwise, you're going to have to process the thing manually. So that's why you just be smart about it. I've been doing this for over 30 years. First time that we've been in this sticky situation about trying to decide what to do for last year's taxes, and we're in March, for crying out loud, the end of March. So, I guess the 411 for you, extend. And if you need some help on that, 775-786-4900, mbosma@keystone.cpa. We do have some bandwidth. We can make that magic happen for you. Anyway, on the phone, Mike Slinkard from Human Energy Concealment Company, or HEX. Mike, when we're talking about R&D, and then and I said the pitfalls, which I just basically recapped. I'm like, hey, up until this last year, or actually it started in 2022, where you had to capitalize these costs. How do you decide how much money to put in R&D, right? Because you got money in inventory, you got money on the water, right? You got those shipping containers. Most people don't like sending those until they're paid for, because they're not going to fly here from China or Taiwan to get their money. Like, no, you got to pay for it up front. How do you decide how much to put into R&D?
It's a difficult thing, and sometimes it comes down to a seat of the pants decision. Honestly, number one is you've got to know your product inside and out, and understand its application in the field. For instance, we came out with an outerwear pant. Forever, our product was basically an underlayer that people would wear underneath, or we had a lightweight system you could pull over the top of other pants, but it really wasn't a standalone pant. And, just from hearing back from customers, and then, of course, in our own experience, there's a lot of times when, you were sacrificing some comfort with that, having to wear two pairs, particularly if it's warm or things like that. Right. So, in that particular case, it became, look, this is a need that our customers are telling us that they got to have. So, that kind of solidified our decision to move forward with that product. And it's a difficult thing, because we've had a few products that we launched that we thought were going to do good, and they don't. And usually what we do is we start out very conservatively with our first orders and all of that. Fortunately for us, the technology isn't something we have to reinvent. It's just mostly we're just reinventing putting that fabric, sometimes even a new fabric, but we're putting that in a different type of garment. So for us, it's not like reinventing the wheel. It's just trying to figure out what our customers want and what they'll buy. Right.
Yeah, because that's where I know I love to pheasant hunt. Nothing like the pheasant opener in South Dakota. But yeah, we'd always walk in fields, and you have these chaps that are great, but they're also, especially if, like you mentioned, if it's warm, it's a little bulky. If it's cold, it's fine. Layers are your friend. But when it's toasty out there, oh man, I'm dying out here. So yeah, so you're like, yeah. And then it's funny, over the years, you see the guys in our hunting group. They're like, well, why am I taking this whole extra set of chaps when I can just buy pants with this, thorn resistant material baked in? So it's just a little bit more convenient, right? I'll pay the freight on it. I'm fine. But, it sounds like that's what you're doing too. But yeah, it's also, there's a lot more sizes when it comes, if you're making pants versus if you're just making undergarments that can, be generally big or small, they'll stretch to fit whatever. But if you're actually wearing it as clothes, it needs to look right. You gotta look good when you're out there shooting birds, right?
Yeah. I mean, the pant product in particular, I mean, our underlayers, we do extra large, large, extra large, 2X, 3X, whatever. But when you're talking about a pant, now you've got a waist size and a length to deal with. So there's a lot more SKUs, and it's a lot more, expensive to just do the cut and sew on it as well. So yeah, there's a lot of different factors that come in. We originally launched an outerwear pant several years ago, and that was one of the products that actually kind of flopped for us because they didn't get our sizing right. So the product was awesome, but the sizing was all messed up. And so, it took us a couple of years to actually be able to redevelop that and get it into something that actually works well. And we're very happy with our product currently, but that's one of the things when you talk about, the pitfalls of this. Sometimes, you do your due diligence as good as you can, but then, the factory sends something that doesn't work right. So there's some risk involved.
Right.
That's one of the reasons why the best advice I would have for anybody that needs to do this is make sure that your first orders are as conserved as you possibly can get, just to try to steal them out. And then once it's all vetted, then it's, can you bar the door at that point?
Well, right. Well, yeah, but that's also a delay, right? So you're like, okay, it's with that kind of a lead time. So you're like, okay, let's, and that's where it takes years and years for product development and to be able then to, market it and then to make sure that you've got the right, the right combination of adoption and costing and inventory layers. So it's just, it's not for the faint of heart. Let's put it that way. So
that's for sure.
So how do you got into this business back in 2010? Where do you see it going? It's like I would imagine because generally these businesses are pretty capital intensive to buy the inventory up front. How do you see this trending moving forward?
Our trending is going up quite well. We actually have a couple of other parts of our company besides hunting. We've actually. And this was a mistake that actually I tell everybody we made a mistake in trying to basically fund our other entities off of the hunting, the hunting revenue. We have a Hex Aquatic, which actually, if anybody watches Shark Week, they'll probably see the Hex logo even to this day on a lot of the wetsuit products. We actually used a licensee at that time, and not to bore anybody with details, but the licensing, the licensing didn't really work out, so we ended up rescinding that, and we're currently in process of, trying to find an outside investor to help us relaunch that product. Because, like I said, we tried to do it on the back of hunting, and what you end up doing is you don't have enough capital to do either one of them justice. Right. So we've kind of pared back right now. We're focused on the hunting side. We also have Hex Wildlife, which is similar to that. But right now we are focused on hunting, and we're going to try to grow that as much as possible. And we're looking for outside capital to help us with these other entities. And so, that's kind of where we are right now. I'm not altruistic. I'm, very realistic. And right now we're trying to grow the hunting side as big as we can, and I'm 59 now. At some point, we're going to want to market this thing too. So, in the end, that's where we can hopefully get there. Right.
Well, and I know a guy, so
I do too.
Perfect. So it's interesting. The great state of Nevada. I saw that actually for the first time ever this year, there's going to be a moose tag available for this year's hunt in Nevada. Mm-hmm. And I'm like going, how the heck did Nevada get moose? I guess they're migrating south. But anyway, so I was in the Ruby Valley. There's moose to be had if you're a hunter out there. So make sure you actually I thought about putting in my tag. I haven't drew a tag or even put in for a tag in probably 10 years. But I was just like, I might do the moose hunt. I don't know. What do you think about moose, Mike?
I've actually been fortunate in my life. I've been able to hunt all over the world. I've actually taken every species of moose with a bow and arrow. And if you get a chance to hunt moose, if you could draw that tag, by all means, 100% do it.
Okay.
I think it's going to be hard to draw. Obviously there's not a lot of them there, but But if you're one of the lucky few that draw it, absolutely 100%. And plus, you won't find anything that's any better on the table than moose.
Okay.
Moose is outstanding to eat.
So, this is a little added tidbit in the great state of Nevada. I would imagine moose have to be pretty prevalent up in your neck of the woods.
Well, actually, we're in Eastern Oregon, and we have a few moose up, over in the extreme northeast corner. We don't actually have a moose season here in Oregon, so you guys are actually ahead of us there.
There you go.
But I've taken them in Alaska and Saskatchewan, and then also I was over in Idaho and got a nice moose over there. So, you guys beat us to the punch on that one.
There you go, Nevada, this year only, moose on the loose. All right, on the phone, Mike Slinkard from Human Energy Concealment. We come back, he's going to tell us the number one thing you need to know before you go into your direct-to-consumer business. You want to listen to this one. It's important. You heard it here and only here. It's Bosma On Business, News Talk 780, KOH.
The Rolling Stone Music Now podcast gets inside the biggest stories with Rolling Stone senior writer Brian Hyatt.
Now here is my conversation with Jacob Knoll. Your story is an amazing one, and obviously you lost your dad when you were only 1 year old.
It was definitely a screwy way to grow up. I think that a lot of people never heard of who I am, and then they see me joining this band, and they must think this kid must have just been handed everything, or nepotism kid. It's a gift that I have an opportunity to sing in such a big band like my father and my uncle's band, Sublime.
Rolling Stone Music Now, wherever you listen.
Welcome back to Bosma On Business. Your host, Mike Bosma, on the phone. Mike Slinkard, president of Human Energy Concealment Company. Time flew by, Mike. We didn't even get into filing sales tax in all the different states as direct-to-consumer and how that mess works. But there's a software out there called Avalara. It bolts into most every software. And for the benefit of our listeners, if you're thinking doing direct consumer, if you're selling through Amazon, they're going to trip Nexus on all these states that you've got inventory in. You're going to want to talk to us about that stuff before you get too far in, because oftentimes as you go through that process, if you're unaware, that creates a very difficult situation to sell your business. But we have some strategies there too to clean up your prior sales tax exposure. There's a thing called the Streamlined Sales Compact that can take care of about half the states from a compliance perspective. And then you just got to go in and negotiate with the states for the rest of them. But anyway, there's a way to do that. Give me a call, 775-786-4900. As I mentioned on the phone, Mike Slinkard, Human Energy Concealment. Mike, you've been doing this a while, but there's always that one thing, the big thing, the aha, like if I only knew. Like, what would you tell our customers you wish you knew before you got into this thing?
One thing is when you get into this, I mean, having a good accountant is majorly important. We had some that weren't so good, and it cost us a fortune. So, just to give you a little plug there, I guess.
I appreciate
you really
that.
helped us with that. But as far as just generally overall, probably one of our biggest mistakes, honestly, was trying to, like I mentioned earlier, fund our other entities off of the back of the one that I'm personally very passionate about, and I'm very good at selling hunting stuff. And trying to do these other things that I personally wasn't as passionate about. Mm-hmm. Very good business models, actually, and like I said, in the interest of, or like in an aquatic specifically, aquatic is one that we launched a wetsuit product, and it was only geared towards spearfishermen. Well, the problem with that is there's only about 30,000 spearfishermen in the world. It's a great sport, but the market wasn't really big enough to justify a full business. And so, what I wish we would have done is, market that to a recreational snorkelers and maybe have something that could be worn under a dive suit, things like that, to kind of mimic what we did in the hunting side. Just get the technology on people so they can see the difference.
Right.
So that's one of the things that we definitely made a mistake in was, not understanding the market well enough and, kind of throwing money where we shouldn't have, and that kind of thing. But
yeah,
that's a long list.
No, I get it. It's good. I appreciate you sharing your journey, Mike. Yeah, that's spending your first dollar like it's your last, right? Scarcity of capital. Never take it for granted, because as I had actually a guest here a couple years ago now. She was had this great business above market margins, and I just remember warning her. It's like, just pretend that you're going to be on 15% net bottom line profit level in your business. So build around that. And she's like, I'm making like 75%. I go, you can't do that forever because ultimately competition's going to step in and then you don't want all this overhead. So, run your business in a very streamlined fashion. So, but that's where, hey, Mike, I appreciate you coming, sharing your journey. If there's anything newsworthy, we'd love to have you back. Next week, Andy Feltz is going to talk about his journey about being an eye doctor and then basically giving away care and making that pencil. And of course, if you need some help, 775-786-4900, mbosma@keystone.cpa. Until next week, business owners, keep that business engine humming. We call it Bosma On Business. New Talk 780. KOH.
You met Lala Kent on Vanderpump Rules. Now Lala and her friends share everything on Give Them Lala.
I'm expecting my second child, which is very, very amazing.
Congratulations.
To say. Feels
We're
that
all
way.
with child.
You can say she's pregnant, she's knocked up, anything except with child.
Oh, I love with child. I'm going to be saying it all the time.
Yep.
Excuse me.
Yes.
6 feet, I'm with child.
Watch what Lala is talking about on YouTube or search for Give Them Lala wherever you listen.